being the holidays are over and I'm starting to see Valentine's in stores now, I wanted to get you a little something for the Valentine's season. Let's get to it. Welcome. Another fabulous episode of IBF On Demand. I'm your Cupid in disguise and great catch, Eric. You can find me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. Thanks for the follows and subscribe. Find me on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. I know I always say that, but I don't actually know if it encourages people to do that. So hopefully you're encouraged to actually do that. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on wherever you get your podcast. Follow me. I'm actually asking you to do that. I'm giving you something. Give me a little something. I want to thank Arkiva, driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. Thank you, Arkiva, for being a wonderful sponsor. Back for another year. So happy New Year and happy to have them on board as well. Also, please check out ibf.org. A lot going on this year. You don't want to miss out on anything. Go to ibf.org, click yes. Make sure you're getting the emails from them then as well, because that's where you're going to find out when new podcasts and new events come up. And we have a lot of events coming up. We got one coming up actually in February, right around Valentine's Day. It's not too late. We're actually going to be down in Miami for a boot camp. So if you want to come down and meet me there, come on down. Well, for the tens and tens of people that are watching this right now, and actually gave me some feedback, they actually wanted to see part 5 of the series. So thank you for the 12 people, now 13 maybe, that are watching. You actually wanted to see part 5 of the S&OP series. We did a great series last year, wrapped it up at the end of last year on the 4 major aspects of an S&OP process: product review, demand review, supply review, and executive review. So go back, watch that series. This is actually going to be part 5 today of that series. I'm going to go into the S&OE process. You wanted to hear it. I said I was going to get you something this year. You wanted to hear it. This is what you get. So yes, we went through product reviews, demand reviews, supply and resource review, executive review, but you asked for the final one, S&OE review. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into that one today. So in this final step 5 of this podcast, basically what we're going to talk about is S&OE, TAC. Once again, we love our acronyms. So there's a lot of different acronyms for it. Sales and operations execution, tracking, action, collaboration. But remember, basically, there were 4 steps. The first step in the process was our brand strategy. That was our product review. The second step in the monthly cycle was our demand review. This is where it became our channel and customer strategy. Then we got into the third supply and resource review. This was our optimization or fulfillment strategy. And remember, sometimes the answer was no. It was our decision, our business decision on what to do with the product and channel strategy. And then the last was the executive strategy, which came out of the executive review. Next, we have the tactical review. This is going to be our weekly TAC, tracking, action, collaboration, or S&OE, sales and operations execution. This is the weekly process to track and ensure adherence to the S&OP plans, yes, but also make corrections as needed. This is the business agility that everyone wants to talk about. This is where the business agility comes as part of this process as well. It's a review of the current conditions and compare them to the assumptions and plans we had. It's real-time updates and action plans to minimize my financial risk, my operational gaps, and changes that may now have or have been created to existing policies and strategies. It takes the plans we have created and it came through the monthly S&OP process and reviews and reconciles it to unresolved gaps based on the current conditions we're seeing. It's really accepting reality is what we're doing here with an S&OE weekly plan. And that's what really makes this key. This is part of a weekly type of cadence. I mean, what if plans don't go as exactly as you planned. Well, guess what? They don't usually. The number one challenge among companies is connecting the sales and operations plan to the true operational plans and execution. Number one, when you talk about struggles that companies have. 76% of respondents talked to on a poll regarding the biggest hurdles in planning and execution, saying that they have a good planning process but poor execution. I actually say if you got a real good planning process that connects, then you got good execution as well. So that shows that disconnect between planning and execution. A lot of S&OP processes, they'll spend 30% of their time in an S&OP process in a liquid zone where they can't really they're just looking at trade-offs and they're trying to make decisions in that liquid zone. 70% are looking at the frozen zone where they have no chance of impacting things. So that's the reason why we need to look at this weekly element as well. And it really became more and more popular during COVID. During COVID, we reached out to a lot of organizations saying, hey, how has your S&OP processes changed? What are you doing different to try to get ahead of what's happening? 60% of the companies we talked to when S&OP first started, when COVID first started, a lot of the respondents said they went to a weekly S&OP process, more of a war room type mentality, just because things were changing so quickly. So to try to stay ahead of it, they utilized a weekly S&OP process. It wasn't sustainable, and in time, a lot of those companies, mature companies, went back to a monthly cycle for their product demand, supply, executive reviews. But the mature companies out there, the ones that are seeing a lot of results and are best practices, they have a standing S&OE or some type of weekly element as well to make sure they're having that discussions on what is the delta between the plans and the reality we're seeing. It helps connect that planning to the execution. It's an important aspect. It also, for a lot of organizations, it helps take the discussions of what's happening now that are maybe occurring in an S&OP process you don't want. It gives them a forum to have those discussions. So you can start tabling some of those discussions saying, hey, we're discussing that in the weekly meeting then as well. So there's a lot of great benefits, and the reason we're seeing adoptions of S&OE process. So what exactly is an S&OE process then? Let's unpack that a little bit for us. We're looking at the inputs. What are the inputs? Number one, the inputs are going to be the functional leads in each of the areas that were part of the executive S&OP. So if you look at it from we had what is my product strategy, my brand strategy? Who's the executive leads for that? Who are the managerial leads, or who are the operational leads for that? That's what you're looking at here. Not the executive leads for these, but the operational leads. So it's the functional leads from an operational standpoint when it comes to the brand strategy and product, when it comes to the demand and channel strategy, which is a lot of times going to be people from the commercial side then as well, because it's the customer strategy as well. It's going to be the fulfillment strategy or the operational optimization strategy as well. You're going to have supply, logistics be involved with this as well. And you're going to have people that are representing from the finance side of things too, because you have a financial with any kind of decision, the financial implications with those decisions as well. So these are the functional leads with areas that have been approved from the executive S&OP. It's also going to be the other inputs then are going to be the buffers. We created buffers in our planning process. What should be my inventory buffers? What should be my capacity buffers? Other buffers that you have set. It's going to be information from the playbooks. Hey, this is what our plan is, but if this happens, here's our risk mitigation for this. All those came out from planning strategies. A buffer, in essence, is a planning strategy. You're planning for the unknown. You're planning for the uncertainty. You're planning for the variability. You're planning for the reality that we're dealing with now in our weekly S&OE. So those buffers, our playbooks, our executional strategies, those are going to be part of our inputs to our S&OE as well. It's also then going to be what we're currently seeing. What are the current? Hey, here's our forecast. What orders are we? How are we pacing to this? Here's what our production plan attainment was. What are we doing compared to this? Those are going to be the inputs as well. And then current outliers to the plans. We don't want to look at every item every week. We don't want to get mired down into the details too much every week. But what you do want to look at are the exceptions. What are the outliers to the plan? What are things that are outside of control limits that you need to look at? We have a buffer in place that can absorb, hopefully, a lot of that uncertainty. But when things are pacing, it's going to surpass and be a critical item or critical issue for the company. It's outside of certain control limits. Those are what we need to address every week. And then the final thing, I think, one of the most important inputs into an S&OE every week is simply the acknowledgement of reality. We had a plan. Here's reality. Let's deal with the reality. Yeah, I know we have a budget. I know this is what we want to do, but this, let's face it, this is what we're seeing. And if we continue, this is the results we're going to have. Acknowledgement of that reality, even though it's so simple, it's an important input to a good S&OE process. So then what are our outputs? Why are we doing this? What comes out of the weekly meeting? Well, it's providing guidance for managing that short-term horizon. I'm not focusing on really what's going to happen out a year from now. I'm managing the guidance for my short. It's that management hierarchy. So if we look at outside of a frozen zone to that slushy zone, that's where I'm going to focus. It's where I'm managing trade-offs. I can make decisions. I may not be creating new types of demand or new capacity, but I can do this instead of this. I can decide to focus on this instead of this. We might be able to push people to buy more of this than this. So it's management of your demand, management of your resources. That's what you're looking to be able to do. It's that trade-off hierarchy is what we're dealing with, that management hierarchy. So it's providing guidance for that short-term management. It's communication across the function of any changes and changes that were happening. It's still a very collaborative process. It's a very cross-functional process. So we're still aligning all the functional areas. So it's really communication then across those functional areas of this is how we're seeing things. These are a change we're going to make. It's sensing and responding to the current reality. So it's sensing, but then translating that into actionable insights that you can act on in the near term. So it's dealing with those current reality. And finally, it's an action and alignment of all those functional areas. It is a consensus. Where you see agility, I said this is where he brings in that business agility. Where you truly see agility is when you are aligning functional areas together towards a common goal and they're working towards the same thing. That way, when things change, it's easier for everyone to steer the ship quicker towards a new goal or a new objective. As you get new choppier waters, you can adjust your course together. So one of the keys in agility is to be able to align your organization not only towards the same plans in an S&OP, but the same trade-offs that you're making in an S&OE as well. I don't know if I said that. Plans in an S&OP, trade-offs in an S&OE. Straight that, reverse it. You understand it. So in many ways, this in essence is a scaled down executive S&OP. Is essence what you have. We have an S&OP process. This is an executive S&OP process that's scaled down, it's focused, and it's happening as a review every week. And yes, that's exactly what an S&OE is. It's a weekly process that's going to align all the functional areas. It's still about decision making. It's still a business process, but it's a weekly process that aligns all functional areas, unified set of assumptions for coordinated decision making. Guess what? The same exact definition we have for an S&OP process, we can apply that same definition as a scaled down version on a weekly process. Meets every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And we meet for an hour and a half to discuss what's changed, what do we need to do, how do we need to manage our short-term objectives for the business based on what we're seeing today. It is about collaboration. It's collaborative. We we see this highly collaborative, cross-functional is important. It's resolving what we're seeing, and it's making exception-based decisions. That's really what we're talking about, is exception-based decisions is really the key of what it is. So really, when you're looking, I said it's pretty much like an executive S&OP. If you look at an executive S&OP, it's at that extended planning horizon. Most organizations past 3 months. And we're talking out maybe a year and a half, 2 years out, and what's going to happen, where we can impact business decisions. Here, we're still making business decisions, but it's really on the near term. It's that management hierarchy. That's one of the big difference on it. Where S&OP are aggregated views. We're talking about plans that we really can connect multiple functions. So we're talking about more aggregated views, maybe even high as a business unit type of view. Here, we're talking about disaggregated views. We're talking about items and customers is really what we're talking about. We're talking about those low levels of granularity where we're seeing the impacts of those decisions based on what we're seeing today. S&OP is a decision-making forum, but it's an exception-based decision-making forum. We went through a product review, demand review, supply review to bring into an executive review not every single plan and every detail of every plan. No, that's what you're going to do in the reviews. What you do in an executive review is exception-based decisions that executives need to be part of. You're not bringing you're bringing in where they need to be part of those decisions. Guess what? An S&OE is an exception-based decision-making forum. We're bringing in not every item and customer. We're bringing what needs to be resolved, the things that are out of bounds, the exception-based decision that we need this forum, this cross-functional group to help make some input and make a decision on as well. S&OP is collaborative. It's cross-functional. Guess what? S&OE is collaborative. Where an S&OP is at an executive level, where we have the C-suite in there, we have the vice presidents in there, may even go down to a director type of level in an S&OP process where you're making business decisions, where you're still making business decisions, but they're more operational decisions. And here we're going to be looking at the management. Who are the functional leaders from an operational standpoint? They're the ones. Both of them are cross-functional, but the level of participation is going to be maybe a step down for an S&OE compared to the executive S&OP. S&OP's consensus, it's coming with a unified plan. Guess what? There's not a lot of difference here. S&OE is consensus. We're coming up with a unified plan. Now, those plan horizons, the plans we're doing are different types of plans, but it's still a consensus, collaborative, to a unified plan is what we're going for. Transparency, strategic KPIs are really what we're focused on to drive that long-term business health. We're still going to understand the business health, but they may be more tactical KPIs. Great example of that. If you're launching a new product, a S&OE may be a great forum to bring that new product introduction. You're talking about the item and how it's launching, but it may be adherence to plan. It may be how much market share we're getting with this item. Those may be tactical type of KPIs that you can bring in for an S&OE. So your KPIs will differ based on the strategic versus the operational and tactic. Ultimately, you want your KPIs to align to what decisions you need to, either red flags you need to identify or decisions that are being made. So ultimately, they see a lot of similarities, but just a level lower difference with an S&OE. So that's what I started with this. Think of an executive S&OP on a weekly basis that's scaled down. That, in essence, what an S&OE is. With that, the two then kind of marry together quite well. An S&OP and an S&OE, when working collaboratively together, I said it's a beautiful marriage. And the reason why we see mature S&OP process really adapt a standing S&OE meeting as part of their process. And you really think of this from a plan, do, check, act type of cycle. Every month, we're going through a monthly S&OP process. We have our product review. We have our demand review. We have our supply review, resource review. We're developing our brand strategy, our channel strategy, our fulfillment strategy. We're optimizing this, what's best for the business. Those all feed in to an executive S&OP. And it is a decision-making forum. We're making decisions and we're developing plans. Those plans are then tied to the execution of the business. They can be buffers. They can be playbooks. Ultimately, it can be a plan that we plan to execute to. That is the ultimate output, is a unified plan of an S&OP process. So the plan part of an S&OP is step one. That's our plan. We come out of that plan and directionally things change. The guardrails, we come outside of the guardrails. Reality is hitting. In an S&OE, a weekly S&OE now, we're dealing with those directions, those guardrails. That becomes the do. We're taking the plans, we're executing these plans the best we can within the parameters we've been set, and we're dealing with when we go outside of those parameters. That is step two. That becomes the do aspect of this cycle. Now, with that, we are checking, this is what's happening. These are the exceptions to the plan. These are the exceptions of the plan. We're escalating those exceptions. We're letting know the management and executives then know, here are the exceptions that we're doing. We have to have that good feedback loop. Communication becomes key. But we're escalating, here are the exceptions we have. Here are things we had to change. Here are things we're doing. That becomes the check. So the step three in our process is the check, which is a critical output then of an S&OE process. That then comes to the S&OP process. If something is an exception every month, guess what? It's no longer an exception. It's the rule. And if it's a rule for the business, you need to deal with it in the planning part of it in the S&OP. So as you keep seeing the same exceptions boil up time and time again, the act part becomes product, demand, supply, executive review, dealing with those exceptions. So you plan better, so they're no longer part of the exceptions in the future. So you can plan better to make execution even better going forward. Better plans make better execution. So the output for S&OP, a good plan. The output for S&OE are the exceptions and the good checking of those plans. This allows you to do step two of the execution and the act, S&OP, really refining those plans to become better in the future. So the two marry excellent together, and they really need to work together. Communication is key. You need that strategy to the planning, but the planning to operations and execution, and you need the communication from the operation, execution, management back to planning then as well. So to recap then, consensus, yes, you get a single response, a single execution. It's coming in with options and having everyone on the same page. Ultimately, it makes the organization and enterprise more agile. It's about collaboration. It considers cross-functional inputs and the impacts in almost real time you're having to other functions in as well. It's what best meets the short-term objectives, not necessarily just for you, but for the organization then as well. That's collaborative. And finally, it is transparency. It's the company has acknowledgement of reality and together can sense and respond to the new realities they're seeing. Well, that's a wrap. I'm going to go find a way I can go celebrate Valentine's Day alone. My name is Eric. You can find me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. Thank you, Arkiva, driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. Thank you, Arkiva. And thank you, IBF, then as well. And by the way, if you do want to kind of spend Valentine's Day with me, remember in February, second week in February, check it out at ibf.org. We're going to be in Miami that week before Valentine's Day for a boot camp on S&OP boot camp. So please come check that out in Miami. There's still time. If you haven't gone, sign up, come. If you're in the area, come on over then as well. I said check out ibf.org. There's a lot more events coming on this year. We have a full 2024 together. This is the first podcast of the year. Welcome. I'm glad you are back. I'm excited for this journey we've been on and going to be on in the future. We have a full year. I already have 2 other podcasts I've recorded that's coming out, and I got a lot more in the books that I'm going to be doing. A lot of exciting guests. If you have anything you want to see, let me know. We may consider that as a future podcast then as well. Love to hear from you as well. So finally, remember, for that special person in your life, don't forget, wash your hands.